All right, thanks for bearing with me. I'll try to get through this quickly as it is the last talk of the day. This is not a talk that I really want to be giving at all. We are learning from people today, and they're bringing forth their intelligence to bring forth things that maybe will help us all. I'm going to bring forth stupidity that maybe will help us going forward. However, I feel like it's my responsibility to share this because in my career and in all of ours, we've learned from other people who have been willing to step forward when they blew it and own it and try to learn from it. And so that's why I'm up here today. And then any harsh criticisms of this event I reserve for myself. I'm the snow safety director. I'm the boss. I was directly involved with this incident, and so I do not extend any of my harsh criticisms to others who are peripherally involved. We have a really good, I think, culture of accountability in Big Sky Snow Safety and in the Big Sky Ski Patrol in general, and anyone else who is involved in this, I'm quite confident, is holding themselves to account. But so what happened? We triggered a large avalanche in the Bonecrusher Avalanche path. Thing's not really working. This was a 7-foot crown. The deepest part of the crown was right in there, maybe there, but that was about 7 feet. Average crown height was 5 or 6 feet. It was a storm snow wind slab that accumulated over the course of 5 days of snowfall and heavy wind. We had gotten 21 inches of snowfall in those 5 days at our weather plot that is just downslope from this avalanche path. Just over 1.5 inches of snow water equivalent in those 5 days. The slab was pencil hard from the bed surface all the way through. There were only 2 discernible layers in the wind slab. The bottom 10 inches to a foot looked like a more discrete wind event that happened early in the storm, and then there was a slight break in there, and then the wind and the snow really turned on, and the top 5 or 6 feet were just, you could not discern any layers. It was just one gigantic pencil hard wind slab. The bed surface was a wind in temperature crust, not a particularly shiny crust, but it did have crust-like characteristics. Made a hell of a nice bed surface, turns out. So that was the setup there. The crown width was 380 feet, and the slide ran 200 feet vertical, and we called it an R4D3. The overarching thing with this avalanche was the wind. It had been a very, very windy storm. It had been blowing hard for 5 days, but in the previous 36 hours to this event, we had 1,700 wind miles from due south. And how we calculate our wind miles, it's very, very simple. Just the average winds for that hour, and we just stack those on top of each other to get a wind run for a discrete period of time. As I said, in the previous 36 hours, there was 1,700 wind miles, which comes to an average of 47 miles an hour for 36 hours. And granted, that data comes from the summit of Lone Mountain, which is about 2,000 vertical feet above this event. However, this was a wind event that did mix a long way down the mountain. It was plenty windy at this area as well. And then the night before, we had 12 hours of gusts into the 70s and 80s, and our max gust was 88 miles an hour over the previous night. But it was pegging into the 70s and 80s all night long. before this avalanche occurred. So, big deal. We triggered an avalanche at Big Sky. Big deal. This is the big deal. This is the run out of that avalanche path, and this is the top of the Swift Current 6 chairlift. And the even bigger deal with this avalanche is that there were people inside of these buildings. That's the lift control room, and inside that room there were 2 lift operators and a ski patroller. There were 2 ski patrollers in our patrol station that is up there, that is onto the chair barn. It's part of the chair barn, separate building from that. The avalanche blew open the egress door and partially filled that room full of snow with people in it. They were fine. There was definitely enough room for them. We almost fully buried one of our avalanche dogs in its kennel, excuse me, inside that room. And then in the main chair barn, there were 2 lift mechanics. The snow did inundate part of the chair barn. It blew through a garage door and put a significant amount of avalanche debris inside the chair barn. They were in a place in the chair barn where they were unharmed. There were no physical injuries from this event. There was some psychological trauma, no doubt, but everybody came through it pretty darn well, which is very, very lucky that happened. Obviously, we did not expect this to happen, and that's the fundamental thing about this. We got a very unexpected event that, with the classic mountain accident characteristic, when you look back at it, it's like, you dumb shit. How did you not anticipate, and how is it that there were people inside these buildings when you lit that shot? And that's what I'm gonna talk about. That is the fundamental problem here. Clearly, those buildings should have been evacuated. They could have easily been evacuated, and we failed to recognize the potential for this event. We did recognize that the avalanche path was heavily loaded, but we just did not believe that that path was able to create an avalanche of this magnitude. And I'm going to talk about, I'm going to move this because I don't like looking at that picture. So how could we have missed this badly? I want to, that's the main thrust of this talk, and I want to be very, very clear that any explanations for how we could have missed this badly are not excuses. They're just simply how it came to be that relatively intelligent, relatively experienced avalanche program could have something like that happen. It has to do with, part of it is the history of this avalanche path. This photo is from 1976, the day that this avalanche path was named Bonecrusher. It was 2 years after the resort opened, I believe, right in there. Some of you in this room know Dougal McCarty. I've been told that is Dougal McCarty doing some snow science and taking pictures of crystals. This grove, beautiful grove of white bark pine, now 9 out of 10 of those trees are dead, and it looks a lot different. You can see that it was a persistent avalanche that was running close to the ground, and again, that's when this avalanche path was named. We definitely have a nice meaty hard slab over the top that broke out that persistent weak layer. This event that happened this year was the third time the avalanche path has avalanched in the 50-plus year history of Big Sky Resort. The second time it avalanched was in 1982. in early season. In the winter of 82, 83 was an infamous season at Big Sky. There were a lot of avalanche accidents. It was a highly unstable snowpack, very weak, and a lot of bad shit went down in 1982, 83. And one of those things that went down, I don't think it had any safety implications necessarily, but that was the second time that the Bonecrusher Avalanche path ran. And then it ran this year. In between the 1982 slide and this year, we had seen almost no avalanche activity in Bonecrusher. We have been shooting it, but what has happened in between 1982 and now is the construction of the tram, the original tram, and the Shedhorn chairlift on the south side of the mountain, and the road was built to get, most of you are probably familiar with getting back to the main core of the resort from the south face. You have the Duck Walk Road that goes along, and the Duck Walk Road bisects this avalanche path right at the bottom of the old start zone of this avalanche path. And so the terrain shape had been changed a lot between what it was in 1976 and what it was in 1982. This is from our avalanche atlas that we put together in the early 2000s with the brainchild of Scott Savage. Thank him for that. But from our avalanche atlas, I quote, "However, it has not slid deep since the duck walk was cut through the middle of the path. It remains to be seen if Bonecrusher is capable of producing any more large avalanches." We found out that Bonecrusher is indeed capable of producing a large avalanche. Since the duck walk was built, another thing that has changed is the old swift current lift, that old detachable quad, was replaced by that big, beautiful D-line 3 years ago. And they moved the top terminal of the chairlift right under the avalanche path. We didn't like that, but we weren't too worried about it because it's not a particularly frequent path, and we started to develop a belief that it probably couldn't produce an avalanche. And when they built the D-line, they built an up or a back slope to the unload area that further manipulated the avalanche path, where you had the roller that comes over where it typically loads, and there's an artificial bench that was created, and it's almost like a classic supported slope, as they say in Canada a lot, and it even changed the slope even more to where we thought that it was even less likely that we could produce an avalanche here. In the past, we have shot it early season, and the most we have gotten early season is we would fail a weak layer deep in the pack with a hard slab on top of it, and it wouldn't avalanche. It would just break, slump, and set. And it has done that a few different times. So it's not a structural problem. We know we have the structure to create the avalanche. We just didn't think we quite had the terrain. The steepest part of the bed surface of this year's avalanche, we measured at 31.5 or 32 degrees, and most of the path is right at 30 to 31 degrees. So here we are having a belief that this thing won't avalanche. It begs a very obvious question. Well, if you don't think it's going to avalanche, what are you doing shooting it? That is pretty easily answered by a philosophy we have at Big Sky that we have developed, that we rely on our explosives to tell us a lot of what we need to know about Lone Mountain. The place is really big. It's got a very complex avalanche problem. The winds are notorious, and it's just a hard place to forecast. We don't go around thinking that our forecasting team can keep track of every avalanche path, its likelihood of avalanching, its sensitivity, any of it. We try to do all those things, and we do. However, we truth those things with our explosives. And we shoot a lot of paths regularly at Big Sky that we do not think are going to avalanche. But we want to make sure that what we think is going to happen or not going to happen is actually the case. So we call it doing our due diligence, common term. So we will apply explosives to avalanche paths just out of due diligence to test what we think we know about the avalanche paths. Due diligence, I believe, is just a polite way of saying covering your ass. I think we do some shots out there just because we don't want to be in the position of having an avalanche accident and having not shot the path. So when we went up to shoot the path this morning of February 2nd, I believe it was, February 5th, excuse me, we were doing our due diligence, and we did not expect to get that result. We had a really strong belief, and our belief was wrong. So that was from the history of the path. The familiarity heuristic comes into play. Again, I've told you about the history. We haven't seen an avalanche there in a long time, and our familiarity said if it does fail, it's going to fail probably on a persistent weak layer. We had reason to believe at that time that our persistent weak layer problem was in relatively strong shape. We had run big avalanches earlier in this storm cycle, no step downs on any aspect or any elevation, and we were feeling pretty solid about the deeper pack. We totally underestimated the possibility of a 7-foot wind slab running without breaking into the deeper pack. So I think that familiarity, it caught us working in a familiar paradigm of what we thought, but we were working with an avalanche path that was in an unfamiliar state, i.e. it had a 7-foot hard slab on a pretty good bed surface after a pretty extreme weather event, and our familiarity worked against us in that. Expert halo and confirmation bias. This is one that I feel very personally was a giant blow-it for me personally. We were going out to shoot the path, and to access the start zone, we had to hike to it. And we were thinking about how we were going to deploy the explosive onto the path, and my route partner, who is somebody I've worked with for many, many years, have deep respect for, is just a top-notch avalanche professional, grabbed a stick of bamboo and was going to do a bamboo shot. And I consciously thought to myself, we don't need to do a bamboo shot. We don't need to go out onto this slope to effectively test this slope. But I did not give voice to that. And I should have. And I wonder, had I given voice to that, would that have caused us to say, well, why don't we want to go out onto this avalanche path? Well, it might avalanche. Duh. Well, if it does avalanche, maybe we ought to get the people out of those buildings. I will forever we'll hold that. And the lesson is, it's a classic, but if you see something, you think something, say something. I didn't because of respecting the expertise of the person I was working with, and also his willingness to go out onto that slope with a 4-pound shot and a piece of bamboo confirmed my bias that this avalanche path isn't going to do anything. And so I think those two things work together where I didn't say anything, and I sure as hell should have said something in that case. And I wonder what chain of events maybe would have been put in motion to make this a much safer situation had I spoken up. And obviously complacency. We were very, very complacent in relation to this avalanche path. Why were we complacent? Well, it had been a very big storm cycle. We had run large avalanches in the Alpine with no step downs. Again, it's just Bonecrusher. It's easy to look at Bonecrusher and just say it's just Bonecrusher when you're used to dealing with a lot of the big paths that we're dealing with on a regular basis at Big Sky. Operational forecasting, I believe, there's just a fundamental tension between the theoretical and the actual. In theory, we knew in theory this could slide, but did we actually believe it could slide? And I think we got very, very complacent in putting too much emphasis on what we actually thought would happen, and we got complacent in the face of the theoretical, and we should have been paying more attention to the theoretical when we looked up at this avalanche path, saw that it was very, very heavily loaded, and we were shooting it. Another source of our complacency is that morning when we went out, we weren't even sure we were going to get out of the base area. We thought maybe we were going to be spending our morning in the cafeteria because the winds were blowing so hard we didn't think we were going to get out the lift. We went out at a mid-morning, not an early morning. We sent a skeleton crew up first to do some of this work at tree line. And we didn't go out we didn't know if we were going up the mountain until just before we went up the mountain when lift maintenance said, yeah, we're willing to run you up. That mindset, like the earlier presenter from Mount Rose said, you go out loaded for bear and then you back off based on what you see. That's usually our mode too, and in this case, we didn't think we were going to get up to our big paths, and we were lulled into complacency with that. And then just the nature of the winter. We have done so much avalanche work this winter. It was getting pretty routine to be going out in big conditions, and we got really, really complacent in the face of this. So, takeaways. Operational. We have changed our standard operating procedures in multiple places on the mountain, certainly in Bonecrusher, but in other places on the mountain where theoretically we could potentially, might someday hit a building. If it's in that realm, we've got people out of those buildings now. And so we have changed our standard operating procedures and hedging more towards the theoretical rather than our reliance on the actual, what we actually think will happen. And if theoretically we could hit that building, okay, let's have people out of that building when we're shooting it. Personally, as a veteran avalanche forecaster, with this event, I have a massive amount of gratitude for how this turned out. In that, you listen to older avalanche forecasters and operations people who've been doing it for a long time. Liam Fitzgerald especially comes to mind. He's been very generous with sharing his experiences doing high-end operational forecasting for a long, long time. You will screw up. You will miss it. You will underestimate something. You'll screw it up at some point. And this summer, I was working with one of our Avitechs. We worked there year round, and we were doing some task and shooting the breeze out in the woods, doing something. And he asked me, "Do you have any event in your career that just haunts you? That you just come back and it haunts you?" And I thought about it, and I got really, really scared of my answer because my answer was no. And I was like, "Brother, you are so fucking due." And I have one now. This one's going to haunt me. But I am incredibly full of gratitude. I don't exactly know how to express that gratitude to the to the whims of luck or whatever. I'm grateful that Doppelmayr builds really strong lift shacks, but I am very, very grateful that nothing really life-altering happened in this avalanche. I'm embarrassed. This was dumb, and this was a miss, and I'm really proud of the program that we run at Big Sky. And yeah, maybe pride goes before a fall, but I don't know. Pride is sometimes what gets you out of bed in the morning too to go do it again. And I think we run a quality program at Big Sky, and I feel embarrassed that this happened on my watch, and I was directly involved. I'm perplexed as to how this could happen. It's real. What I'm finding as I try to process this is you can believe in intellectual concepts of don't get complacent, don't think you know it all. You can believe those kinds of things, but actually living them, I'm finding is a little bit harder to do when you've been working in an operation and for years and years and years. You do start to believe that you know a thing or two, and you know what? You do know a thing or two, and it's hard to. It's sometimes you lose sight of what you don't know, and I'm pretty perplexed that that happened, that I allowed that to happen. I've processed the emotional part of this event, I think, fairly thoroughly. I have not fully processed it intellectually. I haven't had time. It just keeps snowing, and when it's not snowing, it's 60 degrees, and we've just been at it at Big Sky this year, and I've done a little bit of reading, preparing for this talk, but I have some more intellectual processing of trying to figure out just what happened and my personal makeup that allowed it to happen. And then finally, lesson delivered versus lesson learned. I was reading in the Avalanche Review, and I wish I could attribute this to who said this. It was a ski patroller, and it was a published conversation where different people were weighing in, and Lynn printed it in the Avalanche Review. And this, what I consider a very wise thing was mentioned by a ski patroller, and the patroller talked about lesson delivered versus lesson learned, and this was a lesson delivered. We've all learned lessons as we've gone through our careers. How well do you remember them? What do you forget? What bias do you then pile on to whatever lesson you learned? And I thought I would have learned the lesson that don't shoot heavily loaded avalanche paths above personnel. Pretty freaking basic. I know that. Somehow that got away from me. And so I think the idea of lesson delivered is really, really important, and just returning to these lessons and not go forward thinking, well, I've already learned that lesson, so that couldn't happen to me. That's a dangerous, dangerous thing. So I like to remember lesson delivered, and Bonecrusher delivered a lot of big lessons, and again, I have to spend some more time processing what those lessons were or are fully. Basic lessons learned. Don't blast above people, or excuse me, basic lesson delivered. Don't blast above people. Yeah, okay, got it. Question what you think you know. The mountains can surprise. Again, that's one of those things that it's easy to say, yep, I agree with that, pay that lip service. I'm thinking about whether I'm living that truly. And then respecting weird or extreme weather is a classic. It was an intense storm, and the direction of that wind was just put a fire hose of snow onto Bonecrusher. And it was extraordinary conditions in Bonecrusher. And again, we were operating in a familiar paradigm. And we almost blew it completely. We did blow it completely. It just, we got lucky that nothing worse happened. That's what I got. I'm willing to answer any questions, or if you want to laugh at me, laugh at me. Go ahead.
Just a statement. Just thank you for your vulnerability in not only laying out like the factual what happened, but like how you were personally dealing with it and handling it from somebody who's obviously out there handling such a huge place and probably feel like you should know everything and how did this happen. Yeah, just completely appreciate it.
Well, thank you. That is a lesson that was delivered as well. So you have this event. How are you going to deal with it? And I chose to head on and was very transparent. I tried to be very transparent with our crew. This definitely took a chink out of the armor of trust and whatnot. This was a big miss, and to own that to the crew and to move forward and now to own it this way. That's what you got to do, and that's how we learn. And yeah, thank you.
Afraid another comment instead of a question, but this is a second ski patrol room door that's been blocked by an avalanche, and it's I think it points to look at the designers going into this, and they often just don't have the big picture concept in mind. And it's just I think it's a good point for all ski area personnel to look really critically at their buildings, their infrastructure, because your resources are potentially in that room.
Yep.
You need to get out of that room.
Yep, 100%. Yeah.
I just want to say a huge thank you. I have tremendous appreciation and respect for you to stand in front of this room and tell the story you just did. I'm a lowly avalanche educator, and when it comes to the low likelihood, like you thought there was no way that slope was going to go, but devastating consequence, I think that's the easiest hazard to underestimate professionally, especially for guides looking at all the multiple fatalities that have been happening in the last couple of years. And I'll just tell you personally, as an educator, when I see like forecasters and professional snow safety people getting caught with their pants down with those hazards, it 100% resonates with me, and I think about that when I'm out making my own decisions and educating my students. So thank you so much for your humility.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
I was just curious if you, over the years, have you ever just probed from top to bottom of that slope, like what the shape of that thing usually is? And I was also wondering, like, was it unusual to receive that much wind from that direction? Was that pretty? Do you usually see it out of the southwest? I mean,
yeah. Regarding probing it, no, I have not. I can tell you that what was left under the bed surface was about 4 feet of snowpack, which is pretty standard for a windswept area there. So we had almost, in that case, damn near tripled the snowpack with that one slab. I hadn't thought about that in that kind of terms yet. And still, that thing went into motion, and it still didn't step down and rip out those basal layers, which were down there, but we thought they were strong. That blows my mind that it didn't step down, and I'm really glad it didn't, because then what would have happened if we would have added that 4 feet of mass to that? And so yeah. No, I would say before we started our hike to get to the start zone, my route partner looked at it and was like, boy, I've never seen So dumb. I've never seen Bonecrusher look like that. And I looked at it and I was like, me neither. It looked like a frickin' wave about to break across the thing. To get those sustained winds from due south, the local topography there just funneled that snow. And then there's a nice line of trees that act as a snow fence, and it just piled it in there. And so our problem with this wasn't that we didn't identify that it was heavily loaded. We knew it was an extraordinary loading event. Our problem was we didn't then adapt our operations to this extraordinary situation. It's just Bonecrusher. It's not going to. And what we thought is if it does do anything, it's going to crack and slump just like every other time it's done anything, which isn't that often. But when it has done anything since that road's been through, it just and sets. And we thought maybe we're going to crack this great big hard slab. We didn't expect it to get up to however fast. I mean, this thing went into motion, and the amount of momentum. I haven't been like sick to my stomach and awed by an avalanche in quite a long time. This one, I was just like, really? It blew my mind a little bit, and the fact that it produced that way.
Just curious on there's communication protocol, I'm sure, with dispatch, and you guys are on the same radio station with all patrol. Just curious what your two patrollers were doing in the chair barn. They're hearing your shots called in, and then lift ops are probably hearing it as well.
Yep, it's just assumed safe. We went. It was a leftover protocol from the previous lift that wasn't actually in the runout, but we used to shoot it. And our protocols get everybody inside, and much of that was not because they were going to get hit by subsequent avalanches, noise. We're going to blow their ear. If there's a lifty out there raking, we're going to blow their eardrums apart. And so we had that protocol of everybody will be inside the building. Well, then the chairlift moved, and we were following our protocol for safety, being in the building, but the new buildings are dead red underneath that avalanche path. So it was just, assumed, it was assumed safe. Bonecrusher doesn't really avalanche. We're fine in here, and not fine.
And also echoing everyone else's appreciation.
Well,
I think in Big Sky we get used to running all these huge paths of persistent weak layers, and that was probably in a lot of people's mind that Bonecrusher is going to take we'd never see an avalanche. We've had these huge cycles, and it's going to take some sort of persistent weak layer to produce. And that was kind of
Yeah, and that's what we didn't recognize was that could be a failure of recognizing the avalanche problem. We were focused on if it rips out, it's going to rip out deep. The avalanche problem was a freshly formed wind slab sitting on a really good bed surface with just a thin layer of lower density snow, as Carl talked about. It wasn't a faceted layer under there. It was just, I believe, a very thin trapped layer of low density that just had enough ability to propagate. There's one other question. Yeah.
Did that send off any red flags or red alerts we need to go hunt the rest of the mountain?
Oh yeah,
this is not isolated event?
We went out and lit that place up, and we didn't get any avalanches. That was the one, and we missed it. We were looking at it. That was the one, and we missed it. And so, and I actually felt better about that. If the whole mountain had come crashing down after that, because we didn't expect the whole mountain to come crashing down. We actually did not. The distribution of the way it was loading, we didn't expect that. And that was, I don't know what I would have done if the whole hill had come down when we went out the next day. It actually corroborated, this was, deeply disturbing. But it would have been even more disturbing when we were thinking the rest of the mountain was probably in reasonable shape. Yes, we are going to trigger avalanches, and we're going to try to, but are they going to be big, big rippers. We didn't get any. Somebody had a question.
You had mentioned in the email, I think you guys measured the water in that slab.
Oh, yeah, we did.
How much is that?
I can't remember.
Like 28 inches.
What was it?
Wasn't it 28 inches?
28 inches?
8 inches of
Is
water.
that right?
It's 33%, 73% or something?
And it still didn't step down to persistent. It sure as hell ran on that bed surface, so. Cool.
Good job, Mike.
Thank you.
You know, we'll grab that after. I just want to say, for all Ski Patrol's guides, they don't report on the planes that land. And you all are landing planes all day, all winter, every day, all winter long. So, like, let's get up for Mike. Good job.